Marvel accidentally positioned themselves as the studio-driven alternative to DC's director-driven films. If we were to limit ourselves to just Marvel's earlier films, that might be the case. That after Avengers, every Marvel film recreates the wonderful tonal balance of sci-fi fantasy drama with comedy. DC claims to be director-driven, even though Zack Snyder created 3/5 of their films, and the other two fall in on themselves to copy his visual style. After Black Panther though, the idea of Marvel stifling its creative team is fully broken. Black Panther is a masterpiece by any level, but especially so considering it's created within the Marvel and Disney confines. Actually, after watching this film, I'm not even sure they were creatively stopped in any way. This feels like a fully fledged, auteur-driven film that creates a world, a statement, and a counter-statement, and is also an exciting blockbuster film. How does this miracle work? A lot of it is world building, I believe. There's a fun fact that China would be as advanced as the modern world in the 1800s had it been that China used glass instead of China for use. This film presupposes that theory, but does it by directly opposing white imperialism. What if a country hadn't been colonized by the whites and had a unique valuable resource and had been given time to develop as a culture? This wonderful question not only is fully fleshed out, but is questioned and re-questioned. The question is T'Challa himself, who is deciding what kind of leader he should be. The leadership role seems to be a merger between politician and head CIA operative, which is a wonderful detail, and it kind of makes sense that the head politician is the judge, jury, and executioner in this Wakandan paradise. But this paradise is immediately questioned, with the issue of immigration and the potential of influencing outside sources rearing its head. All the leaders seem to be satisfied with staying faithful in the old ways, but you get glimmers of T'Challa being sick of this view, having ventured out into the outside world in Civil War. One of the few negatives of the film arrive early during the opening fight, in which the film has decided to ape the Bourne film's curse, which is the over-editing of fight scenes, with 2 shots per half second. With the opening fight scene mostly being in darkness concerning African slave traders, I was frightened that we'd stumbled into an action film from the mid-2000s. But luckily it lifts itself up very quickly, showing a culture of this made-up city in full force. The film is said to have rebooted Afrofuturism, and it certainly has, with merging of various African customs with the advanced tech that I'm not sure we'll even have in 50 years. The introduction of the main villain, and wonderfully camp side villain, brings in the main theme to the forefront. What happens when a black man whose ancestry is of Wakanda, but has been displaced in America, comes back to reclaim his homeland and fight for racial injustice all over the globe? A man of conservative, old-fashioned values up against a new age radical who doesn't feel at home in either country. Just the act of speaking to him man to man, we hear the American anger against the African calm speaks volumes than any essay written about race. Here's where I'm most impressed. This is a billion-dollar movie out there spouting these new age ideas purely through representations of multiple different races. The idea that both the villain and the hero are espousing Black Lives Matter philosophies while selling toys is so crazy. That unfortunately leads us to our ugly question though. Is this the trade-off we have to make progressive films? Disney are becoming so monolithic and overwhelming in their quest for profit, they are doubling down on regressive policies. Disney CEO Bob Iger in 2016 started ranting incoherently when Bernie Sanders dared critique him for not supporting the $15 minimum wage. His response? How many jobs have you created? That sounds like the rantings of a Marvel corporate villain. Battles are still going on for the wage better than $10 an hour, while Disney has gone from success to success. And guess where the money's heading? Straight to the top. How many lower income workers are barely able to afford rent while they work at a place that espouses so many superficially progressive notions? The latest $1,000 tax break is being prohibited until the union and workers agree to Disney's new contracts. Does the positive social changes Black Panther creates become negated by the venture capitalists at the top? As early as 2015, we have heard of business practices where Disney swallows the competition whole. We'll have to see how long it takes for workers to realise that change is within them to take down the 1%ers. And yet, these are the questions hinted at Black Panther. That radical change has to happen at the top for any significant change to occur. If it weren't for the justified rage and violence by Killmonger, then T'Challa wouldn't have come out and supported globalization, shared resources, and acceptance of refugees. We'll see how that turns out for Wakanda when Earth is in global war under Thanos in Infinity War. Killmonger does all the dirty work of assassinations of war criminals and forced armed races for T'Challa to realize that conflict and connection with the outside world is inevitable, and he finally decides to break out into the free world. This film represents an African future as a utopia, and my film knowledge is limited, but I feel like that is a whole new angle for film and possibly art in general. And if that's not the case, is there any doubt that this will influence a new generation of art and art goers? I love the representation of culture as art, as well as the standard which is art as culture. I love the science-positive vibe to the film. I love a villain that is so close to being represented as a hero. I may seem to be overboard in my view of the film, but I can't say how enough representation of the downtrodden classes in the world being presented as a free and creative in art and science feels so fresh and vital for the future of cinema. But does all the social positivity Black Panther provides worth continuing Disney's monolithic status? I'm not so sure, but I certainly will be the last person to blame Black Panther for that. 9 out of 10. I also have a podcast in which I have discussed the political news stories of today. Thank you for hopefully watching.